Let's discuss this now with Henry Tuck from the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, a think tank specialising in counter-terrorism and security. Henry, evening to you. Pretty worrying stuff there reflected in Frank and Nick's reports. What do you think sits behind the raising of the terror threat?
Well, I think it's something that's been coming for a while. I think the James Foley video in the last few weeks has increased the amount of attention on Britons in Iraq and Syria. But I think this is something that's been coming for quite a while. The numbers are now up to around 500 supposedly, with potentially 250 having returned already. So yeah, I think it's something that has been coming for a while and that it's not entirely surprising.
So you would agree then that the nub of this, the real problem is people who have gone from Britain to join IS or other extremist groups and are now returning?
Yeah, so from previous conflicts such as Afghanistan in the 2000s and in the 80s, and also Iraq in the 2000s, roughly 1 in 9 foreign fighters that have fought in those conflicts have returned to attempt terrorist attacks. It remains to be seen whether that 1 in 9 statistic carries through to the Syria conflict, because obviously they're not entirely comparable.
And what can the government, what can the security services realistically do?
Well, there are a number of measures already in place. Passports can already be confiscated, so I understand that what's coming on Monday will be strengthening that provision. Obviously, they can monitor people, but they don't necessarily have the capacity, considering the scale of the problem, to track absolutely everybody 24 hours a day that they might like to. Because,
as Frank was saying, you can get to Syria pretty easily by going through Turkey, and clearly Turkey is, if nothing else, a big holiday destination.
Yeah, well, I think the problem from the UK and the EU's point of view is that you don't require a visa to get into Turkey. Flights are quite cheap, it's very close, it's a couple of hours away. Once you get to Turkey, you can fly to a town near the border, make some contacts and get across relatively easily, I think.
Is this a move that's being mirrored by other European nations?
Yeah, well, we've been seeing, in the last few days, we've been seeing new powers introduced by Australia, and I believe there's some coming from the Netherlands as well. And there's also a push to coordinate more within the EU in terms of the
security threats.
Well, no, sorry, in terms of the travel within the EU, the system that logs who's on which flights and where they're going. At the moment, European countries don't have access to each other's records, but that's something that they've been pushing.
And is this, again, Henry, a kind of reflection that this is a new sort of terror threat that is being posed by ISIS, IS? Do you feel that security services are geared up properly to respond to it?
Well, I think the extent to it is new. I don't think the problem itself is necessarily something that we haven't seen before. Obviously, returning foreign fighters are potentially more dangerous than your homegrown extremists because they've managed to pick up skills. They might be more radicalised than when they left. And they might have become desensitised to violence while they're out in Syria and Iraq, considering some of the stuff that's going on there now.
Indeed. Henry Tuck, thanks ever so much for coming in. Henry from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue.